main problem in a barter economy is the need for double coincidence of wants. I've got cheese and I want chocolate. That means I've got to find a trading partner who has chocolate and wants cheese, and you can spend a lot of time looking. In order to reduce these search costs, people eventually begin to accept and exchange almost any good that is portable, durable, divisible, standardizable, and in broad enough demand that people know that they can get rid of it anytime they want to trade for something else. That is, what I'll do is I'll trade my cheese for salt, because chances are I'll eventually find somebody who has chocolate and is willing to accept salt in exchange, because he knows he can turn around and trade that salt for what he wants very shortly. This is how commodity money is brought into being. People began to use some commodity as a medium of exchange in order to reduce search costs, and eventually some commodity begins to circulate that's convenient to use and has all the good properties of money. That brings up the question, what can you do with your cigarettes after you quit smoking? Well, if you're in a German prisoner of war camp during World War II, you might have used cigarettes for money. Cigarettes began to circulate as money quite naturally in order to solve the problem of double coincidence of wants. The Red Cross brought care packages into the prisoner of war camps and gave prisoners little packages that included chocolate, cheese, other goods, and cigarettes. So if you didn't want cigarettes and you didn't want chocolate, you could make a trade. But if you had cheese and wanted chocolate, you could trade your cheese for cigarettes, knowing that eventually you'd be able to trade the cigarettes for chocolate when you found the right trading partner. Cigarettes began to circulate as money, the medium of exchange. They also began to fulfill the other roles that money plays, a unit of account. That is, prices began to be quoted in cigarettes. It cost 80 cigarettes to buy a shirt, or 2 cigarettes to get a shirt laundered. Also, cigarettes began to be used as a store of value. People would hoard cigarettes as a kind of savings and spend them whenever they needed to buy something. So cigarettes were a kind of commodity money, circulating, being saved, and being used as a unit of account. What can we learn from the experience of German POW camps? Well, first of all, they were not unique by any means. We have prisons now in the United States in which cigarettes circulate as money all the time because there aren't dollar bills available there. And to solve the double coincidence of wants, prisoners use cigarettes as money. Even people who don't smoke cigarettes will accept cigarettes in exchange because they know they can spend them whenever they want something. Also, cigarettes circulated in the countries of the former Soviet Union after the collapse of the ruble in the early 1990s. Because the government was printing so much money and sparking inflation, people were afraid to hold rubles, and therefore an underground economy developed in which cigarettes were the commodity money and began to be used as a unit of account, a store of value, and a medium of exchange. So, anytime people find that commodities serve them better as money than the actual paper money of the government, they'll shift and use commodities instead. Well, this raises the prospect that even in the United States, we could decide to use commodity money instead of the Federal Reserve notes. I mean, that could happen any time. The only reason we're so committed to Federal Reserve notes is, first of all, they're very convenient to use because everyone will accept them everywhere. But the reason that's true is, first of all, they're legal tender. The government says that any contract you settle with dollars is settled, and therefore you can't be sued for breach or non-payment. The second thing is that the Internal Revenue Service accepts payment of taxes only in dollars. So you've got to have dollars to pay your taxes, and that creates a demand for that paper money. However, if you and I are doing business among each other, we might settle our account in any way that's convenient for us to do so. So why not commodity money beginning to arise in the United States today? Probably not cigarettes, because cigarettes aren't as convenient as dollars. But what about frequent flyer miles or long-distance telephone minutes? I mean, don't these have all the same properties as money? They are measured in numbers. They're very easy to carry around. They can be stored on a computer chip, on a magnetized strip, on a card. I mean, they work just like money, except they have the added value that they are inherently valuable. They're good for their own sake. They're commodity money, as opposed to the fiat money, which has value because the government says that it does. So you can imagine a money system beginning to be organized around frequent flyer miles or long-distance telephone minutes. Now, the Fed would probably find this to be an undesirable development because it's going to be harder to control the money supply when the money supply is effectively being controlled by airlines and telecommunications companies and being controlled by private operations. Because of this, the Fed then might demand that those different kinds of commodities be controlled in a particular way so as to prevent inflation and instability in the economy. That is, the Fed would get involved in the business of those particular commodities. So that's one thing. The loss of control of the money supply is one fear that comes with a shift to a commodity system. The other thing is that once transactions begin to occur in terms of those commodities, they're a little bit harder to tax. So the Internal Revenue Service would want to get involved in this development as well. But you can imagine it makes really very little difference whether your bank account is measured, whether those numbers represent dollars or whether they represent frequent flyer miles. The system would work exactly the same either way. And the commodity money is always going to be appealing because it represents something of real and final value. So the Fed has to watch out because a private money system can pop up anytime, just like the cigarettes began to create a money system after World War II, and just like the cigarettes began to be used as money when the Soviet Union fell apart. Anytime a commodity money system can arise if people find it easy and convenient to use.